Ever since the James ossuary became public, it has attracted enormous controversy about its inscription, about the way its finding was announced, its ownership, and even as it made its way from Israel to the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto for its first public viewing in November 2002.
Finally, the box is on its way. And of course, then the extraordinary thing was that it got damaged in transit. Packed. And it received a blow in shipping the way you are horrified when you watch your suitcase go tumbling down the conveyor belt at the airport and crunch. The cracks were completely through the width of the wall of the vessel.
Unfortunately, the cracks do penetrate the inscription, and in fact at an important point, so that we're going, for some of our analysis now, the inscription, we're going to have to rely on photographs that were taken before the damage was done.
I understand from colleagues at the Israel Antiquities Authority that it was inappropriately packaged, and when it was transferred to Toronto for exhibit at the Royal Ontario Museum. And that is certainly one of the unfortunate byproducts of this coming from a private looted collection and not museum to museum, government to government.
It was a tragic event, but it was a big relief that we hadn't been responsible for that.
Conservators at the museum were able to seal the crack, but the damage had been done. Since then, scholars and the public alike have been studying the ossuary and forming their own opinions. And it really all comes down to the names etched in stone: James, Joseph, and Jesus.
Even just writing brother of on an ossuary is very rare. But then if somebody's going to bother to write brother and it really is Jesus, why wouldn't someone say Jesus the Christ? Lord Jesus. Some indication that this is the Jesus rather than another one of the thousands of Jesus running around.
Even Josephus, where he wants to identify this James, has to say James, the brother of Jesus, the so-called Christ. Because he knew there were so many Jameses out there and so many Jesuses. I mean, this is something we probably in the modern age find it hard to get a grip on.
It's as if the inscription said, Richard, son of Bill, brother of Bob. That's effectively the range of the inscription, I think. If you said that, brother of Bob, in an inscription, you would need to say, clarify why you're calling him the brother of Bob. Which Bob?
But why this find is so potentially important is that we're not just talking about any old Tom, Dick, or Harry. James, Joseph, and certainly Jesus are pivotal characters in a religion that has lasted 2,000 years. Though religion is a matter of faith, the authentication of the ossuary is in the hands of science. How do the two factors, science and religion, coexist? What role do they play in James' ossuary and our understanding of it?
I think religious faith is based on a number of things that are not influenced by the discovery of an object, the authentication of an object, the rejection of an object as inauthentic. I think those things are not the basis of faith. On the other hand, I think members of a faith community could justifiably become excited about the recovery of an object that brought them closer into a more intimate relationship with the member of the ancient faith community in which they stand.
Well, it's still a sense blind faith in the ossuary, but it is blind faith with an object to look at. You don't have James in front of you. You don't have Jesus to talk to here. But you have something that does come from the first century.
Mas qual é a conclusão? A arca se refere a Jesus de Nazaré?
it's highly probable that it's from the time of the person that we know as James the Just. Whether we can go that one step further and say that this is the ossuary of the James the Just, that is really a step of faith, and we'll never know the answer to that one.
I think there's no way in which we can ever be absolutely sure. Since all three names are so common, we can never be absolutely certain. There is no such thing as absolute certainty in history or in archaeology. We can have a great deal of certitude about it, but we cannot have absolute certainty.
What we know for certain is that an ancient stone burial box was discovered that reads, James, son of Joseph, brother of Jesus. Experts still differ on its authenticity, and we may never have complete unanimity on what it means. But if this ossuary did belong to the James, this physical piece of history would be the oldest written reference to the Christian Messiah. Of course, scientifically proving the Bible is not necessary for the faithful, but it helps us think of when Jesus walked the earth. For me, it's been a great opportunity to revisit James' teachings and his belief that faith alone isn't enough. You have to back it up with good works. And that message of helping others and why to help others is timeless and awesome. For the History Channel, I'm Ken Deasy. Thanks for watching.
Jesus. Desde que o ossuário tornou-se público em outubro de 2002, especialistas têm estudado o que talvez seja um artefato antigo extraordinário.
If this is referring to Jesus, the Christ of the Christians, and we have now brought the Jesus of faith and the Jesus of history closer together, that is a mind-blowing event for a lot of people.
We are detectives as historians, and we have the evidence sitting there, and then we need to generate a hypothesis to explain that evidence. It is an ossuary. It's got real material. It's from the ancient world. The question is, where does it fit?
Arqueólogos encontraram centenas de ossuários e possuem vasto conhecimento sobre o seu propósito e significado. Cientistas e estudiosos estão conduzindo testes especializados no ossuário. E teólogos estão discutindo se Jesus sequer teve um irmão, tudo para determinar se essa arca conteve de fato os ossos de Tiago, o irmão de Jesus. Tiago, o irmão de Jesus?
Hello, I'm Father Ken Deasy. For the next hour, we will follow an investigation, a fascinating inquiry into the authenticity and impact of what could be one of the most important biblical finds to date, the James Ossuary.
Mais trapezoidal do que retangular, o ossuário ou arca funerária é bem pequeno. 50 centímetros de comprimento na base estende-se a 55 centímetros na parte de cima. Tem 25 centímetros de largura e 30 de altura. 20 letras em aramaico inscritas em um dos lados da arca formam as palavras Tiago, filho de José, irmão de Jesus. Uma antiga arca funerária, portando a inscrição Tiago, filho de José, irmão de Jesus, pode ser o tão procurado vínculo com o Messias.
If it is authentic, it's certainly the find of the millennium. not just the century. But this worries me considerably.
Pouco depois que o mundo soube a respeito do ossuário de Tiago, este mergulhou em mistério e controvérsia. Porque a parte da inscrição parece escrita por outra mão. Como o dono do ossuário obteve este artefato? E o que fez o ossuário rachar quando transportado a um museu?
I believe it's a modern day fraud, but I couldn't rule out unequivocally that it's not a modern forgery.
Essas arcas funerárias, geralmente feitas de calcário, eram muito usadas em Jerusalém entre os anos 20 a.C. e 70 d.C.
When a person died, they would be wrapped in a shroud and placed in a tomb that was an above-ground tomb, such as we imagine for Jesus. And then the tomb would be sealed so that as little air as possible would get in. The body, of course, would decompose, and after about a year, the family would come in, gather up the bones, place them in an ossuary, and that ossuary would be then placed in the tomb.
Once the skeleton is taken apart, the ossuary only has to be as long as the longest bone in the body, which I understand is the tibia.
Uma das coisas mais importantes a ser estudada em ossuários é a inscrição. O estudo da escrita antiga, chamado paleografia, é um campo altamente especializado. E André Lemaire, da Sorbonne, em Paris, é um dos maiores especialistas mundiais. No verão de 2002, Lemaire tornou-se o primeiro estudioso a ver o ossuário de Tiago.
How did you come across this ossuary? I mean, you have seen it.
It was very simple, just by chance, I must say. By chance, when I was in Israel for 6 months, working at the Institute for Advanced Studies, somebody just told me I may have something to show to you which could be interesting for you.
O misterioso contato de Lemaire em Jerusalém pediu sigilo. Não queria seu nome revelado. Mas o fascínio de um achado potencialmente grande foi forte demais para o paleógrafo ignorar.
He wanted to show me a picture of an inscription which is very difficult to read and which he could not read. So he wanted to know whether...
Okay, if you could read it.
Yes, exactly. So I read with him because it's very clear. James, the son of Joseph, the brother of James.